Now, when a woman gives birth or adopts a baby in the UK, she's entitled to up to 52 weeks off work, 39 of which are paid. But for women who have their babies through a surrogate, the laws aren't the same.
Yeah, it's much harder to get the time off, and when they do, it's unpaid. Shoshana Berkeley is a teacher who used a surrogate, and this is her story.
When I was 16, I found out I couldn't carry children, so I knew that my only option was surrogacy. So when I met my husband, we straight away went down the surrogacy route. The bursar at my school told me that I wasn't entitled to maternity leave unless I showed adoption papers. And I explained to her that I'm not adopting, he's biologically ours to start with. The law states that the person who gets a maternity leave is a person who physically gives birth. I think I was just shocked because I just presumed that although it is a rare occurrence to meet people that have had surrogate children, people have all heard about it. It's not an unknown situation. The more people that know about it, the better, and the sooner we can change the law to put it in line with adoption law and to put it in line for other people that it's their biological child, but they're unfortunately not in the situation where they can carry a baby.
Well, Natalie Gamble is a leading legal expert in fertility cases. I think this will come as a surprise to a lot of people, particularly when you think that mothers that are adopting are entitled to maternity leave, and yet in this situation she wasn't. Is it just a sort of a strange anomaly of the law that we haven't looked into yet?
Absolutely. It was never designed this way. It's just a gap that hasn't been addressed properly, because the rules that are there were designed for women giving birth and then separately for women who were adopting a child, and surrogacy just falls in that gap between the middle where there's no law to provide for it.
So what can they get off to raise their child?
Well, basically, the mother who is the intended mother doesn't have any automatic rights to time off work at all, so nothing equivalent to maternity leave. There are sometimes slightly more restricted rights to things like parental leave, but then that isn't always available immediately and it's often unpaid. So really women are left in the position where they have to negotiate with their employers at their goodwill as to whether they're going to get any time off work at all.
Well, what is maternity leave for? Is it for the actual recovering from the physical exertion of childbirth, or just getting through the first few months of what is a very difficult process?
Yeah, well, obviously it's both.
Right.
And, you know, most women, there's a short period of time where you're recovering from giving birth, but you don't have a year off work to do that. The most of the time is there for you to bond with your new child, and that's in the baby's best interests as much as it is in the mother's interests.
And I guess, given that, sometimes for a woman that hasn't carried her own child, it takes even longer to bond, or it's maybe an even more important time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most women who've been through surrogacy, it's never the first choice. They've got a very long history behind them of, you know, maybe lots of miscarriages or lots of failed fertility treatment. So, you know, the baby that's arrived is something they've waited for a very long time. And it's really the final insult to that whole journey and trauma they've had that they then don't have the time off work they would otherwise have had they not had to go through all that.
Anything they can do? Any recourse? Any way they can fight their corner?
Well, there's a case being taken at the moment to the European Court of Justice where a woman's taking her employer to court, but it's untested and it'll take a long time to decide whether the law is discriminatory. So the best advice really for people is to negotiate with their employer and to, you know, hope that they have kind of goodwill and will be a bit flexible.
Appeal to their heart, in other words, Good to speak to
It all
someone.
seems so complex, and I'm glad they've got people like you trying to make it easier for them.
Flagging up the issues, Well, after 7 we got the first TV interview with a mother of twins who was denied maternity pay, and it was her cousin who acted as the surrogate. We're going to be chatting to Jane Kasim and Amy Bellamy later on to hear all their problems. A very serious story, because most new mothers are entitled to maternity leave, but for women who have their babies through a surrogate, the rules are very different.
Normally, when a woman gives birth or adopts, she can get up to 52 weeks off work.
And for up to 39 of those weeks, she can be paid.
But new mothers of surrogate babies are only entitled to parental leave, which is just 13 weeks off work unpaid.
Now, this has caused a huge debate in the House of Commons, and we've got a TV exclusive for you now with the mum at the centre of the whole confusion.
Yeah, joining us is Jane Kassim, along with her cousin Amy, who is the surrogate for her twins, Isla and Ivy as well. Those are beautiful babies that Kate was referring to.
Oh, my goodness.
And equally lovely local MP, John Healey.
Well, perhaps not quite as lovely.
Hard to compete, sadly, John. Thanks so much indeed for coming in, all of you. How are things?
That's fine, absolutely fine, wonderful.
OK, great.
Good. So how did you come to need a surrogate in the first place?
We found out when I was 15 I couldn't carry my own children. I was born without a womb, so I've got everything else, but I needed a surrogate.
So you can provide the eggs,
yes.
so biologically
They
your
are
baby.
our children, yes. We just needed a surrogate to carry them for us, and that's when Amy came along.
And was it a very quick decision for you, Amy? You thought, yes, I'm going to do this?
It was an easy decision, yeah. Jane's my family and I needed to help, and I had an easy pregnancy with my son, so I thought, well, why can't I do it again? We didn't know it were going to be twins.
No. I know, that was an extra bonus there for you, if we could put it that way. So there you go, everything great, seemingly set up. When did you first realise that you wouldn't have the same maternity leave and benefits that other mums might get?
It wasn't until I was ready to actually leave work, about 8 weeks before I was due to leave, before they were born, and we found out that, actually, no, you can't have any maternity leave. There's nothing they can do to help us.
So how does the maternity leave differ for you two? You
Basically,
presumably...
I'm entitled to full maternity rights, full pay, full 52 weeks leave, which obviously I don't really need. It was just a bit of time off before and a bit of time off to recover after, and I would have quite happily gone back to work or given it to Jane if we could.
But you are essentially going through the same thing now.
Yeah, because I don't need maternity.
Yeah.
I suppose
So
you're not
it's-
going to the sense that you're not raising the children, are you? I
Yeah.
suppose that's the point from your perspective. Is there no way that you could swap?
Nope.
No legal way?
No legal way.
We're trying to get the loophole changed and trying to get things happening.
Yeah. What can you do to change this then, John? Because it's clearly a bit bonkers, isn't it?
It's very unfair, and we need to change the law. I mean, you know, Jane was up at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock this morning with the twins, and she and the babies need that very important time together in the early weeks and early months. And when in this country we give those rights to pay and to leave to mums that give their own birth to their own children and who adopt, seems no reason at all why we shouldn't do the same to mums who have their babies through surrogates. And so we're campaigning together to get the law changed. As their MP, you know, that's part of my job, to raise it in Parliament and get the government to change its mind.
And will it?
I don't know, to be honest. But I think
it
we've got a good
sounds
chance.
like one
'Cause
of
I mean,
those
it's such a powerful
no-brainers.
case. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just been overlooked in the past. So I'm hopeful, and I've got support from MPs from all parties. And, you know, Jane and Amy together make a really powerful case for changing the law and closing this legal loophole. So we'll see, but we're not going to let it drop, are we?
No.
Definitely not.
Well, Jane, it must be heartbreaking for you, because all this time you've craved and wanted your own children in this case, and then not to be able to have the time to spend with them.
Exactly. I mean, you look forward to your time off, and then when you get hit with that, it sort of brings a dampener on it. And sort of we did our own research into it, thinking, oh, this can't be right. But no, everything we found out and we looked at, we just came to a dead end. So hopefully, I mean, we'll probably not get anything from it, but for people in future, we're hoping that we can change something for them.
Yeah,
Really?
I think the real problem is that mum...
thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Surrogacy.
it is.
It's
There's only
becoming
about
more
100 babies born in this way each year in this country, but it is growing. And the problem for mums like Jane is that they're forced to choose. Do they go back to work very quickly, or do they give up their job entirely? And they shouldn't be faced with that sort of problem.
No, indeed. Well, you know, it's good that they're so perfect. They never cry.
They do in the morning.
Yeah. They've given good account of themselves this morning, anyway.
Yeah.
To all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.